Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 408. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. Thank you for joining me here on the blogcast. Today's episode is, it's a doozy. It's a little bit of a doozy. What can I do to prepare you for this? I don't know. Let me just say, if you do not want to hear about like medical stuff, like a medical diagnosis, et cetera, then this is the one to skip. It's not gross. Like there's no like, body horror. Just like aside from the horror of having to like deal with the medicine. So anyway, just feel free to skip if you would like. But if you want to know what's been going on with me the last few months, here it is. It is called A Day at the End of May. Preface. This is not a piece I wanted to write. I did not feel like I wanted to talk about this or share any of the multitude of thoughts that have overwhelmed me over the last month. Some things can be private, I thought. Not all things must be written and shared. But then I could not write anything else. This piece, this experience, this moment was so all-consuming I could not think about other things. It was a dam stopping up all other flow. I wanted the flow to start up again, maybe through a crack in the wall or around the side, but a month went by, and I was starting to feel like I might never write again. A month into this dry spell, I began to think the only way out of it was through. So, this piece may well be more than you might want to know about a health condition. It's certainly more than I wanted to write about, and even more, not something I wanted to experience. But in the interest of clearing the way so I can finally think about something else, I begin with a day at the end of May. The nurse turned pale when she read the glucometer. The whole office kicked into emergency mode, and when the doc came in, he let me know I was going to be there a while. My blood sugar was super high and had been super high every time I'd been tested over the last 5 months, but now that I was in this endocrinology office, it was suddenly an emergency. A young man came in to give me an insulin shot and asked me if it was type 1 or type 2, and I gave him the biggest shrug I have ever shrugged. No one had diagnosed me yet. Diagnosis, I have type, I don't know, man, I guess I have diabetes? Maybe ask the doctor whose office you work in? All afternoon, I had the sense that no one in this office was prepared for someone with no previous diagnosis. They'd assume I knew how to do things I'd never encountered before, had knowledge of things I knew nothing of, and could somehow retain 3 hours of instruction of a complicated regimen of diet and injections with no written materials. I'd entered the world of diabetes through a door that newcomers rarely used. It was a very long day, in which I was stuck with a great many needles. In addition to the shock of hearing I'd have to inject myself 4 times a day and have to wear a piece of tech that my doctor would monitor from afar and have to avoid various foods and maintain a terrifying vigilance, I found that I'd also walked into a world of enormous stigma. I felt waves of shame and blame and moral failings immediately, as if I'd brought this on myself. As if I had only myself to blame. As if all my bad deeds had caught up with me to rain down irreparable diabetes upon me. This was partly just the cultural misunderstandings around diabetes that we've all likely absorbed. I knew intellectually that they were all bunk, but somehow that didn't stop me from feeling them. Somehow, this situation was due to some failure on my part. I'd eaten one too many ice creams and filled up on bread before dinner. I didn't take that extra walk. I instantly got the sense that I was bad. And the questions about food didn't help. Did I drink soda? No. Smoothies? Not really. Any sugary drinks? Not that I could think of. And did I eat sweets? Sure. Once or twice a week. Pastry? Asked my doctor in a conspiratorial tone that suggested he knew I was mainlining pastry every day. And I like pastry as much as the next person, but I very much resented the notion that I had some dark pastry eating secret that gave me a debilitating 4-injection-a-day disease. When I told a friend of mine about this diagnosis, she said, "But you eat better than I do." I shrugged at the pastry suggestion and confessed to ice cream instead. It's a disease that everyone assumes you got by washing down big gulps with an all-donut diet, especially if you are in any way fat. And in stepping into a diagnosis, there's a kind of stepping into that story. And plenty of people who eat only donuts and soda do not get diabetes. I wouldn't enjoy an all-donut diet myself, but I feel strongly that it's not a moral failing to eat badly. Diabetes is not a punishment for food crimes. But it sure felt like one when I walked into this world. Also, a great many very fit and very healthy people also get diabetes. The forums are full of people in shock. The story that this is a disease you bring on yourself doesn't help anyone. But it's a powerful story. You can almost hear it being constructed in retrospect when you get a diagnosis. You imagine people saying about you the way they talked about others, like, "Oh, well, Aunt Doris never took care of herself. Her doctor warned her about those sodas and she didn't listen, and then of course she's diabetic now." With the news of my diagnosis, I heard every tut-tut, every "it's a shame," every "I told you so," from all the decades past. And I noticed an impulse to defend myself, to try and cite all the studies about fatness and diabetes only correlating, not causing, to explain that genes and epigenetics were the most powerful indicators of all, that a failure of the pancreas was not a spiritual failure, but a fairly common development for folks with the genes for it. But I realized no one wants to hear all that. And operating from a place of defense doesn't feel great either. So I flipped a switch in my head and decided I'd just lean into the stereotypes. If someone asked me how this happened, I planned on saying, "I think it might have been my all-donut diet. Do you think maybe that was a mistake?" The thing is, though, no one will really ask you. The assumptions and judgments will happen out of earshot, and folks will just decide you must have been eating only eclairs every day, all day, to have ended up in this position. I know this happens because that's what generally happens to fat people. For more about this, I'd recommend Lindy West's hilarious summary of the movie The Whale. I don't think this is anyone's ill intentions necessarily. I imagine it's a kind of self-protective mind trick to think it can't happen to you because you eat so many salads, or you're safe because you run marathons. But there are many marathon runners and many dedicated salad eaters with diabetes. The story that a healthy life will protect you from all ills is just an ableist myth. If there's one thing I've learned from my month in the wilds of diabetes, it's that every human body is different, and every body responds to foods and exercise and stimulation differently. I've gotten the bulk of my information from a subreddit. I tried other places, but the diabetes educator I was referred to doesn't have an appointment until next year. And the book I ordered just recommended paying attention to your body while eating. Already do that. Thanks. One of my jobs is about paying pretty close attention to my body. Didn't help in this case. So, the diabetes_T2 subreddit on various topics has been oddly the most helpful, if often contradictory. Someone will ask a question about foods to avoid, and very quickly it becomes clear that while a lot of people have to steer clear of white rice, some can eat it, no problem. Bread is impossible for some, tolerated well in endless varieties of sourdough, multigrain, whole wheat, low carb, and pumpernickel for others. I have learned that I need to eat to my meter. That is, discover what spikes my sugar by noting the numbers on my CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. Banana? Didn't go great. Maybe I can only do half a banana from here on out. Brown rice sushi seemed to spike me a little, but maybe it was the sauce the eggplant appetizer was in? I had 5 bites of ice cream with no trouble, but I'm worried about tortillas. What I'm saying is, we can talk about healthy stuff, but what's healthy for me might not be healthy for someone else, and vice versa. A whole banana might not spell trouble for most people. The subreddit has a lot of human drama on it as well. In addition to all the people who proclaim their super fit, healthy bona fides from before, there are also a lot of people self-flagellating, giving themselves public lashings for having been so unhealthy before. They are convinced that they've gotten what they deserved and are now paying a lifelong price. I see a lot of redemption arcs, too. The stories of how before they were health sinners and they have turned themselves around and now they couldn't be more grateful to diabetes for helping them see the light. The dominant stories of this disease are all grounded in morality, that food is either good or bad, and therefore humans who eat it are either good or bad, and the bad ones get what we deserve, which is diabetes. Because I'm the way that I am, all this led me to question the cultural history of diabetes. I knew from watching and reading Outlander, the time travel novel show, that diabetes has been around a long time. They called it sugar sickness then, apparently. And I wondered about that history and how people's thinking around it has changed. I tried to find some medical history, but ended up at Arlene Marcia Tuchman's book about the racist history of diabetes care, which of course I had to read. Even in the last 100-ish years, the thinking around who gets diabetes and why has shifted dramatically. The author begins by talking about how diabetes was once known as the Jewish disease. Sometimes with a positive spin, it's a disease for intellectual, culturally advanced people, and sometimes with a negative. But the stories over time change according to who the culture tends to be demonizing. I haven't finished the book yet, but so far, diabetes has gone from being a Jewish condition to one Black people never get, to one they always get, to one Native peoples never get, to one decimating their communities. White people have made the list sometimes for being too rich, living too decadently, or for being too poor, unable to eat right. It seems pretty clear that if there's a group of people someone wants to demonize, one of the most popular ways is to blame their diabetes on some bad behavior or another. It's a cycle that is really very shocking when you see it traveling through time. It becomes clear why it's so easy to fall into a sense of shame when receiving this kind of diagnosis. I imagine, given the way we tend to think about health in general, that any diagnosis can lead to some questioning. Whatever you have, it's easy to wonder how it happened or what you might have done to deserve it. Certainly, in this country, we treat any illness as a weakness and weakness as a moral failing. We want to be a nation of tough guys. Good people don't get sick. They're too pure and good to have things go wrong in their bodies. But for reasons that I'm still trying to understand, diabetes comes extra loaded with all that, what did you do to deserve this energy? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking if you just skip that one slice of cake, you wouldn't be injecting yourself today. It feels like a large-scale version of a meal where you got a little too full or you ate too much bread and now you feel bad for the rest of your life. It would be nice if it were as simple as a one-to-one, you eat this, you get a disease. Then you wouldn't eat that thing and be safe. But of course, that would just be a poison and no one would eat it. Instead, the body is a complex system where all of us process stuff in very different ways. People around the world eat white rice. It is a staple of the human diet, and for a lot of diabetics, it's worse than cake for their sugar levels. But white rice doesn't give you diabetes. No one knows, really, exactly what gives you diabetes. They're all just guessing. It's unfortunate that a lot of the guessing is fundamentally blaming the patient. Ah, yes, it's your neuroticism. It's your decadent diet. It's your poverty diet. It's your lack of sleep. It's your stress. It's your race. It's your attitude. It's your bad choices. It's your genetics. It's definitely all that pastry. So, side note, non-diabetes content, little break from diabetes. I just thought I should mention that I'm on a different mic than usual. I'm away from home, so I'm using my travel mic. So things may sound a little different. If you're noticing a change in sound quality, that is why. This is my Audio Technica mic. And I usually use a Blue Yeti for you mic nerds out there. So it's been a little while since I wrote this, and things have shifted a bit in my experience, gratefully. I am no longer injecting insulin. I'm only taking some pills. It is the best news ever. So if you're worried about that 4 injection a day situation, it is past. Thank God. For now, hopefully will not be back. But yeah, it basically tapered off as my blood sugar got down to a more reasonable level. I stopped having to do the sort of meal injections. And then maybe a month ago, I got the all clear to stop insulin altogether. So, good news. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was the thing that almost sent me over the edge when I heard that it was what I was going to have to do. Anyway, I'm much better, so that's good. If you would like to know more about this, I'm happy to talk about it. My learning curve was so steep because, boy, oh boy, do they not provide you sufficient information when you get a diagnosis like this. Just like, wow. So yeah, if you have concerns or questions or whatever, I now know a lot more than I did a couple of months ago. I don't know everything, obviously. Oof, there's still a lot more to learn. But yeah. So what do I have for you? I have a song for you. I was going to try and learn Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me, but I couldn't do it any kind of justice. I just, like playing it was not going to fly. So I am going with probably a much better song ultimately, which is a Talking Head song called Sugar on My Tongue. So I will play that for you in just a moment because, I've had sugar on the brain since my blood sugar went bananas. So I'm going to play that for you shortly. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe. If you are in a podcast app, you can usually do all that stuff within your app, or you could go to Apple if you felt like it. That's a great place to give it a little extra boost because they have a lot of power in this stupid industry. No, it's a great industry. It's Apple that is a little bit stupid. Sorry, Apple, you're the greatest. Please give me 5 stars. Anyway, if you'd like to support this podcast with money, that would be also amazing. Patreon.com/Emily R. Davis is the hot spot, but there's Ko-fi, there's PayPal. All those links are in the show notes. You could also join Substack as a paid subscriber. And if you have another way that you like to support artists that I am not yet a part of, please let me know about it, and I will join it for you. I think that's all the things. Thank you, mostly, for listening. So, I shall play for you Talking Heads, Sugar on My Tongue. I'm playing it on ukulele. I had the ukulele with me while I'm here out of town, so that is what I'm doing. I kind of like it, although there's this kind of interesting intro that I think I could have done on guitar, but I could not figure out how to do on ukulele. So it's just straight in, straight out, all uke all the time. And here is Sugar on My Tongue.
She's my neighbor, fill my cup up. Bet you, baby, she will fill it up. She'll put the sugar on my tongue. Will she give me some? She's gonna put sugar on my tongue. She's gonna give me some. She'll put it right there on my tongue. Put it right there on my tongue. Sweet, lover, never find another to put sugar on my tongue. Give me some. Is she gonna put sugar on my tongue? Is she gonna give me some? She'll put it right there on my tongue. Put it right there on my tongue. I've been waiting years and years. Finally I see that you appear. My friends are here and they ask of me, is this the time that we're gonna see her put the sugar on your tongue? Put sugar on my tongue. Is she gonna put sugar on my tongue? She gonna give me some. She'll put